All right, today we're diving deep into the mind of Bob Luitweiler. Using some really fascinating interviews with the man himself, we're going to explore the visionary, the activist, and, well, the incredibly unconventional founder of Servas. I mean, just think about that for a second. This one story tells you so much about the person we're talking about. He shows up to a national conference with two whole suitcases of raw corn. A great idea in his head, but in practice, a little out there. And that's the thing. To really get Servas, you have to get its founder, a guy who was just operating on a completely different wavelength right from the start. So here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll look at what made him so unique, where his ideas came from, how that shaped Servas, and, this is crucial, how he ended up becoming one of its biggest critics. Okay, first up, this guy was a total nonconformist. And that's not something he grew into. His whole approach to life was pretty much forged in that fire from day one. And what's so interesting is that all these things that probably drove his family crazy, they're the exact same traits that let him build a global movement. Always asking why, not being afraid to get in your face, and speaking up no matter what. That outsider perspective became his superpower. So it makes perfect sense that someone who rejected social norms would also reject formal education. His classroom wasn't a university, it was the entire world, something he called the vagabond college. He was dyslexic, so for him, sitting down with a textbook was a real struggle. He figured, why bother trying to understand the world through abstract theories when you can just go out and live it? If you want to learn about sociology, don't read a book. Go live with migratory farm workers in Florida and ask them about their lives. That was his philosophy. So these weren't just random trips. This was his education. Every single stop was a lesson. He saw cooperation in Quaker communities, he saw injustice in the fields of Florida, and he saw a new way of learning in the folk schools of Denmark. Each experience was a building block for everything that came next. And it's out there, in this real-world classroom, that he has this huge breakthrough. He has a couple of encounters that completely convince him of one core belief: that a simple conversation has the power to absolutely dismantle prejudice. This was it. This was his big aha moment. It happened while he was in prison during World War II as a conscientious objector. He's sharing a cell with two black nationalists, and he's the first white person they've ever really talked to. After 3 months, they tell him, "You've changed our minds." And for Bob, boom, a light bulb just goes off in his head. Just talking can change everything. So after the war, he decides to test this theory. He meets this young German woman in Denmark who's just repeating all this anti-Semitic propaganda she's been taught. So he sets up not one, not two, but 3 homestays for her with different Jewish families. After the first visit, she comes back and says, "Oh, they were wonderful, but they weren't really Jews." After the second, she's still making excuses. But after the third stay, something clicks. She comes back to him and just says, "Bob, don't ask me again. They're just people." And this experience is what led him to develop this really cool concept he called the ethnic cage. The idea is that we're all born into these invisible cocoons, these bubbles made of the ideas and values of our specific culture. And these cages limit how we see the world. For him, the whole point of real, meaningful travel was to help each other get out of our cages. Okay, so these aren't just some nice ideas he's having. Nope. This becomes the actual, literal blueprint for a hands-on project. The goal? To build peace, systematically, from the ground up. So the organization wasn't even called Servas at first. It was called Peace Builders, and it was like a 3-legged stool. Yeah, homestays were one leg, that was for breaking down prejudice, but the other 2 legs were just as important. Work camps to physically rebuild a world torn apart by war, and local peace activism to actually go after the root causes of conflict. And you have to understand, Bob was absolutely passionate about this. He saw Servas as a work-study travel program for activists. It drove him crazy when people started treating it like just a hospitality network to find a free couch to crash on. For him, the goal was never cheap travel. The goal was social change. But here's where the story gets really fascinating. As Servas got bigger, Bob, the ultimate nonconformist, became its loudest and most passionate critic. He truly believed the organization he created had lost its way. And man, he did not hold back. He felt like the whole thing had become this comfortable little club for middle-class people to go on vacation, and that it had totally forgotten its original mission, to tackle the actual problems that lead to war in the first place.
In his eyes, the problems were clear. The organization was getting bogged down in bureaucracy and collecting dues, and it was focusing way too much on just being a hospitality service. He saw the original activist hosts getting burned out by tons of superficial visits and then leaving, which of course completely changed the culture of the whole network.
But here's the thing about Bob. He wasn't just a complainer. He had a plan. His vision was to go right back to the beginning. He wanted to create small, active peace builders teams, especially on college campuses, that would work directly on the real causes of conflict, things like environmental issues and racial injustice. So, after all that, what do we take away? What's the lasting legacy of this really complex, passionate guy?
Let's just boil it down. 1. Learn from life, not just books. 2. Talk to people. Real conversation can break down any wall. 3. Get out of your ethnic cage. Go find out how other people see the world. 4. Peace isn't something you wish for. It's something you build by solving problems. And maybe the biggest one of all, have the guts to challenge the things you love, even your own creations, so they can be better. In the end, Bob's most powerful legacy might just be that question right there. It's a direct challenge to the very organization he poured his life into. It's a call to look in the mirror and ask if the purpose is deeper than just hospitality. And it leaves Servas, and really all of us, with a choice that's just as urgent today as it was when a young Bob Luitweiler first started knocking on doors in Denmark. Are we just tourists, or are we peace builders?